Good evening, everybody. It is a different day, but it's the same channel, so I'm going to call that a good thing. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. It was a wonderful time for all of us here. We got a day off, got a chance to spend time with friends and family and get some good food and watch some fireworks. Uh, Welcome to our broadcast today. This is WoW Support, Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. We have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to talk about some of the recent shenanigans with Korea. One of their ISPs was hacking their website or their users for using torrent software. We're going to talk a little bit on the Starlink Mini now that users have had it in their hands. And yeah, there's a couple other stories coming up. But without further ado, let me introduce our team today. We've got Mike with us. Mike?
Hey everybody, hope everybody's having a happy Friday today. We've also got Jackson with us today.
Hey, how's it going? Happy 5th of July, because the 4th of July is never enough. And then we've got Artie. Go ahead and introduce yourself, our flight engineer.
Hey guys, I'm Artie. I'm running things behind the scenes and poking my head out from my computer screen when I need to talk. And back to you, John.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna probably have a lot of residual fireworks. Those people that didn't set everything off last night, and we're gonna have another couple nights of staying up to midnight listening to all the all the wonderful celebrations. It's a good thing. Um, so I think first and foremost, let's talk about that Starlink. There's a couple options out there, and it created quite a stir. There was an introductory price on things. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast. Or Artie, do you have some talking point on that?
I absolutely know nothing about this subject.
All right. So Starlink Mini has just hit the network. I'm gonna go to PC Mag. Um, Early adopters like the portability of Starlink Mini Dish, but they say that $600 and a $50 monthly data cap is a little extreme. So not easily adopted. Um, so one of the people I talked to, it's amazing how far the Starlink experience has come. A mini dish buyer said in Oregon, I had it aligned and up and running less than 3 minutes out of the box, which is pretty cool. It's a 2.5 pound mini model. It stands out of the packaging. Um, uh, Stands out by packing the Starlink antenna into a dish that's about the same size as a laptop, making it easy to carry. And the cool part is it actually has Wi-Fi built into the dish itself, so you don't have a secondary box to lug around and plug in. So it's given some people some flexibility, some portability, and I'm actually excited to kind of try it myself. Um, Not sure if it'll give me good experience on the road, but uh, put enough miles on my car that it's it's going to be worth it to be connected and available all the time. I don't know if it works for in motion, but what do you guys think about Starlink, especially out here in Wyoming with rural connections and lack of anything but dial up?
I think it's a great idea. You know, so in my former job, I worked in a rural town in Wyoming trying to connect a industrial shop space with the internet. And at the time, the company had taken over from another operation, and their solution was a combination of cellular and satellite. And I think the satellite was some product offering ultimately through Hughes Aerospace, I think. Um, it was terrible. It was a terrible connection. The cellular connection was faster but less reliable. The satellite connection was more reliable but not as fast. And so it was just this, it's like kind of pick your poison. Do you want to wait a long time or do you want to wait a long time for it to connect, kind of thing. And we really were scratching our heads, and finally we just bit the bullet. We said, look, let's just go with the local DSL offering. And even though the DSL offering wasn't nearly what we had hoped for, what we wanted, it was reliable and up all the time so that we could at least get something done at the business there. Having a fast uplink to the internet in a rural area like that, you know, is critical because there's a lot of people that have businesses that are out in rural areas or living out there. It's we can't wait on other infrastructures to get built and come into us. And if this is a resource that's out there right now, then that's great. I hope that it works out and it's successful for a lot of people. I don't know, you mentioned that, you know, that price that people are having to pay, 600 doesn't seem like that bad of a deal for it's kind of a relatively new technology. I think that's kind of what I would expect to pay for something like that. It's an all-in-one
So they
package.
they they
So,
they teased the market by saying it was $299.
oh, well
Mm.
then that's
So then they
different.
double the price just right out of the gate. That's
Yeah, okay.
oops.
And then on top of that, you know, a monthly subscription fee is not unreasonable either, but does it reflect the kind of experience that they're going to get? What'd you say? I think you said something along the lines of $50 a month was what it was.
Uh,
What?
50 gigs a month. I'm
Oh,
looking for the
50 gig a
price
month.
right
What's the
now.
subscription? What's the subscription fee? Do you know?
Let's see. Caps it out $50 per month. If you run out, it's $1 per additional gigabyte used.
Mhm.
They're not saying how much per month it is on this. I might have to just go look at it.
Hmm. I mean, new
Hmm.
technology, I would expect to pay a subscription, but if if I'm getting worse service than what I would get for the same cost here in town for either a cable or a fiber subscription, then I can understand why that would turn people off. Like, if I'm not getting as good a service as I get with my cable or fiber, then I should expect to be paying less
Right.
per month.
Well, I
So,
think this is specifically the Starlink Mini, right? They do have a more uh I shouldn't say more, but larger version that is more equipped for businesses, but for someone who's traveling, I guess I could see it being more viable, right? 50 gigs. I don't know if you don't travel that often, but I mean, say you are, I don't know, you work in a really rural area and it's you and your truck or whatever, and you're out driving to uh, a site or something that's rural. That's where I could see that getting too limiting if you're having to use that every day, and then I think you'd run into that 50 gig a month cap pretty quickly. I think because it's not a lot.
hmm,
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding a price on Starlink's webpage. You can see my better side here.
Now, there's something that
Having
I can
trouble
think of
finding
with
it.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and this would be something that would just be a possibility. Say somebody with those goes camping. Somebody's lost in the woods. They've got no Wi-Fi signal. They've got no phone signal. It can be a booster if it's rigged up to accept like emergency calls.
mhm.
But being
Assuming they
that
have a power source, though, right?
Well, yeah, most. I mean, I'm not talking about the person that's has it getting lost. I'm talking about somebody else that's lost. Having one of those is like a beacon that they can actually connect to.
I could see that. I could see that. I could see this being really big in like the RV market too.
Mm-hmm.
People who drive around their mobile homes and whatnot all over the country or whatever, and not everywhere where they stop are they going to have um, good Wi-Fi or mobile service for that matter. And so, you know, they want to, you know, stop for the night, park, and
Watch
chill
a
out,
movie or
relax,
something.
watch a movie or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So catch up on some
I,
emails and
I would I would personally love to get one of the more professional dish ones mounted to my car so I could get the in motion. Costs a little bit more. It's $250 a month for that. I think. I have trouble reading the Starlink webpage for actual what the monthly bill would be.
I'm sure
But
that's by design.
yeah, but I think out here when I'm driving from city to city, customer to customer, um, it might be worth $200 a month just to continue to have access to the network.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely like the mini, it being the size of a laptop is great for like, I mean, the thing I think of is just like camping or traveling, um, but not something that's gonna be your end all be all. Maybe their larger version. Do you know how large the one that you were talking about that you would mount to your car is?
It doesn't easily say.
Or
Getting
you know,
specs off their website is horrible.
if you own if you owned a boat too, I mean that's pretty cool with some people that have a houseboat and they want to be out on the water for a while. I could see that being a super, attractive offer, I should say.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes, but the fact that they've got it down to a laptop size now,
It's impressive.
I it's getting close. I mean, we're
Which
we're getting to the point where everybody can have it.
which I assume I mean, do you have to aim it to a specific way or do they say you just set it up as plug and play?
The
Or is
the
there
demo
some
that
sort of alignment?
there's a little alignment. It's got a little kickstand on the back, and then
Mm-hmm.
the app when you open it, the demo I saw, you you turn it a little bit and it says, "Hey, turn it 15 degrees to the right," and has an
Oh,
animation on the cell phone app.
that's
So
pretty
makes it
cool.
super easy.
Hmm.
Which, I think to myself, these satellites are thousands of miles up in the sky and they're moving really fast across the sky. Does it really matter if my dish is aimed exactly that way, or can it be like a little this way or a little more this way?
Right.
who,
Well, it,
who
it can't
knows?
be that exact if they're allowing users to, just do it on the fly and as you can set it up anywhere. It's got to be pretty forgiving, I would say.
Yep. But yeah, I got real excited when I saw this. I'd love to give it a try, especially since they don't have uh, contracts attached to the thing. You just pay for the month as you go. Um, anyway, that one caught my interest this week, seeing people are actually playing with it and getting some good success.
Awesome.
What else do we have on our list, Artie?
Well, you wanted to talk about Korean ISP that was hacking users.
Yeah.
So there's an ISP in Korea that is under investigation for installing malware on its customers' devices to inhibit BitTorrent traffic on their networks. Um, One of the reasons that this happened is that bandwidth is extremely expensive in Korea. And I mean, Twitch pulled out of Korea because it costs too much to run there. So, yeah, they uh, they were found to have infected approximately 600,000 devices.
That's crazy.
That's a number. That's not insignificant.
Nope.
That's a
Was it
stab
in
in
their
the
terms of
back.
service?
I'm sorry.
What was it in the terms of service they could do this?
Um, I don't know how laws work over there, but the fact that they are being investigated, I think, means that they were breaking laws.
I wonder.
That's
Just on a side thought, I wonder if we're hitting the limits of what terms of services can actually do.
I mean that's crazy. No one ever thinks that they should be wary of their ISP as being, the security concern of the whole. And lo and behold, here they are actually, blocking users from using BitTorrent or by installing this malware on their devices.
I can
Yeah,
understand
I hate to say it.
blocking the traffic, but obviously blocking the traffic wasn't enough, or they weren't able to do it to a degree that made them happy. And so then it resulted in installing something on the computer that would be able to block that. That's really interesting.
So, what I can gather about the traffic that they're blocking, it's kind of like how we use the cloud here for a lot of storage. Um, it's a cloud that people can share with their friends. So anybody can get on there and access it, and it's above board from everything I've been able to find. It's not anything that's illicit. It's just how people use things, and it was drawing a lot of traffic because it was using BitTorrent technology. So
Hmm.
You know, before I got into doing the tech work on this side of things, the provider, I was more of a consumer back in high school and years after that. But I understand now why uh, you've got such a hesitancy on the ISP providers to allow users to share out. The technology is way different for the networks to actually share data from all the endpoints upstream. It just kills the connections. Now, if you got fiber, that doesn't matter. But if you got like a cable modem, all cable modems are like 600 megs down, 35 up, or some ridiculously small ratio compared to the download. And that's just because all those endpoints talking back to the home base. If everybody's talking wire speed, it would saturate home base and it would break the system. So by design, it's slow uploading. So if everybody's BitTorrenting their content out and everybody's downloading that, I could see them having a serious technology issue there.
Right.
But then to install malware on your customer systems to stop it, like,
Well, what's
could you
crazy
imagine?
is, as I'm reading about the reports on it, they say that they had a malware team, and I want to know, was that in their internals? Is the yeah? Go talk to the malware team about that. How crazy is that they just
How do I join
think.
that department? Can I sign up for that? I want to be on that department.
I mean, they've got an ad out. Hey, malware developers needed. Because I mean, it's ridiculous that they would hope to surpass the law like that.
I
Because
would
I mean, what they
also,
were doing was explicitly
I'm
illegal.
going to say this just for reasonable purposes. This is all still alleged,
Sure.
and that is a very important thing that needs to be said.
Absolutely. I mean, it's actually one of the things I love about our justice system here is you're innocent until proven guilty. But in the court of public opinion, hacking your customers is really bad, and it's alleged. So yeah, you're right. Um, but yeah, could you imagine posting out a job offer for a white hat hacker saying, "Hey, you want to switch teams? Come join us. Switch to the dark side. We've got cookies."
Right. Well, I think also, we've kind of glazed over it, but I think for somebody who doesn't know what a torrent is or what the whole idea is and why that's a problem, John or Mike, would you explain that? Explain what a torrent is and what the ups and downs are.
If I had a file that I wanted to send to the world to share it out, I would put it on my computer, and with software, I would share it out. Now, the idea of a torrent is I would distribute that file to you, to Mike, to Artie, and to other people I know in my network. And so you would have 10 people sharing out this file. So anybody in the world that wants it now has 10 sources to go get it. The cool part of torrent technology is it will find all 10 and download from the 10 simultaneously different chunks of what that file is. So you can, from multiple sources, download a file very quickly. And the other benefit of this is if my system goes offline, the rest of the network still has a full copy of that file. So there's redundancy, there's speed enhancements. The file becomes really available to everybody anywhere that wants it. The technology is used for sharing out data files, legitimate data files. But some people have decided to go to the dark side and pirate content because it's quick and efficient to transfer large files that way too. So it's
And it,
kind of got a black eye because of that, but it's still a very cool technology.
yeah, and I think it
Did I
makes
cover
it.
that, Mike?
Sorry, what's that?
Did I cover it right?
Yeah, and the other thing about it is that as long as you have that torrent application running on your computer, you could leave and, maybe you have, school, you go to school classes, you leave your computer at home running in your apartment, and while it's online, it can be farming out and sending even just small pieces of that file at a time. Artie might need half the file, John needs another quarter of the file. They're going to pull different pieces of it from all these different places, and ultimately the end result is that you get a fully assembled file once it's all downloaded. Um, yeah, I remember getting into torrents a little bit. There's actually a couple things where the only way to get a particular program was through a torrent, so I had to download a torrent program and then click on the link and have it start its process and everything. And it'll show you like how many different sources it's pulling from and the different download speeds. And the idea too is that because earlier when we had DSL, our download speeds might have been pretty good, but our upload speeds are very, very small. So it's not like I can upload the entire file to a person, but I can upload a small part of it at whatever rate I'm able to. And so I think that was another real advantage of it, is it was able to overcome the limit in upload speeds that a lot of people had back then, and even still do today in some cases. So it is a fascinating technology, but I do agree that it's been given quite the black eye for its misuse of pirated software and pirated media.
Yeah,
Right.
we use a tool, Snappy Drivers. Now, be very
Mhm.
cautious where you go download that if you're watching this podcast and thinking we'll just go get that. There's a lot of knockoffs that are actually really not useful software. It's actually um, it'll infect your system quickly. But the Snappy Driver, the entire library is available through torrent only.
Mhm.
So you've got to download from the torrent all the drivers. Now, if the torrent's offering 14 and a half gigs worth of files, um, Jackson, your connection, if you're running on a fiber, that could go quick. If you're running on a Comcast or something like that, you're uploading at 30 megs per second. So to download 14 gigs at 30 megs per second, that's going to take a couple days, maybe faster than that. But um, by distributing across multiple users, I get 30 from you, 30 from Mike, 30 from Artie, 30 from anybody else I'm connected to. And so then I can pull it down very quickly. And when we're building out our thumb drives, and we put this tool on there, it downloads in what, Mike? 4 minutes? 5 minutes?
Yeah, it's not very long.
It's crazy fast. And it's just coming from multiple sources. So it's really a powerful tool. I know Microsoft was playing with it at some point on using users to distribute Windows updates to other users. Um,
Hmm.
Turned into a problem because the security of those updates couldn't be controlled. You'd have bad actors get in and put their own code in there, and the network would replicate that. So Microsoft correctly abandoned that technology for their stuff. But as far as distributing software, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Adding on that, I know that a lot of video game updates these days, they will utilize a BitTorrent network to, you've got a 60 gig update that needs to go out. So they have multiple sources that people can get it from. I'm not sure about users, like getting it from another user's device, but um, yeah, it just allows for, and if there's an interruption, that's the beauty. if like the if you're downloading something for many years, if you were downloading something and it like stopped at 98% after, spending a day downloading this thing, you wouldn't be able to restart at 98. It would start over at 0. With this, if your computer crashes, it'll come back up, it'll run a check on the torrent itself to say, hey, okay, this section isn't good. We're going to replace this with a good section from one of the good sources. So um, it's a good way of transferring things, and the checksum that it goes through verifies the data after the download finishes, which is very nice.
I think we're stumbling into where the Korean ISP was having troubles. So if there's 1,000 people sharing files at gigabit speeds, and there's 100,000 people downloading those files, whatever they are, personal memes, personal videos, whatever they were doing in that section of the world. Now the ISP has to redo their infrastructure because there's 1,000 people sharing at gigabit speeds files that wasn't planned when they built out their switches and distribution network. When they're paying for their bandwidth, your ISP has to pay for bandwidth. It's not free. So they get a big fat fiber optic pipe to some network provider, an upstream provider, and they're paying transfer on that. So now instead of paying just for the downstream, they're also having to pay the upstream fees as well, because that was not figured into the cost 2, 3, 4 years ago. I could see this turning into a real problem for people because they didn't plan for it. I think the answer would be just throttle the upload. Say, I'm sorry, guys, we have to renegotiate your upload speed. Thank you for playing.
If I knew more about the law there, I'd tell you if that was possible or not.
I think I'd rather take the black eye from throttling bandwidth than hacking 600,000 of my customers.
Right.
Regulations might prevent that.
It very well could be. I mean, that's one of those challenges. Everybody's got
Comcast
their
and
wants and
Verizon,
desires, and
I believe they were under fire for allegedly throttling bandwidth.
there was an ISP here that did a similar kind of thing to what we're talking here. They didn't hack their customers, but the FCC had to intervene because I don't want to call out the ISP exactly. They would intercept the transmissions between end and server, or the two endpoints. So, Mike, if I'm transferring a file to you, this ISP would read that data stream. It would intercept and then send a closed session packet to the other person. So then you would drop your connection, and then in torrent land, you have a cooldown, so you can't just start transferring again right away to Mike. It would be a cooldown of 30 minutes or whatever.
Wow.
And so it saved their bandwidth, but it's only because they got in and changed the nature of the conversation. That's where they got in trouble.
So I think that was the thing with this ISP in Korea, is they were attempting to slow down the transfer speed or the upload speed so that they could keep their bandwidth under wraps. But then I guess the way they decided to implement that was through malware. So yeah, for lack of a better knowledge of their legal system, that was their loophole they decided to take, and they are now eating it. It looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be a push-pull, and we're going to face that here in our networks. There's new technologies that are going to roll out, and we're going to have a nightmare of a time keeping up with laws and regulations on top of the new technologies that roll out. I mean, back in the 70s, they didn't think torrenting was even a thing. They didn't. It wasn't even a dream. The fact that you could transfer a file from one side of the country to the other was just that was brilliant. But
They thought
now
that
we
we'd
gotta.
never run out of IP4 addresses.
There's only 4 billion of them. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
They were like,
Given
this
it's the
should
whole
be
world.
enough. And then here we are, and we have IP6 because 4 wasn't enough.
You know, we were talking about it. I think I heard anecdotally. I should really check before I quote it. But here's an off the cuff quote. There's something like 32,000 IP addresses per square meter of land on Earth.
In IPv6 land.
That's crazy.
I mean that's enough. I mean, if you split it between here and Mars, you're down to 16,000 per square meter. So, okay.
My goodness. But yeah, it's crazy to think of, if you were to just stop and think for a second of the amount of devices that every single person has. And I mean, myself, I'm sure I have at least 30 different IP addresses that I have in my small apartment between all the devices I have.
We got into the Unify management when I put it in at my house. It was unreal the number of devices we were running in our house. Now I have more kids than the average family, but we had I think the peak was 137 devices.
Wow.
I had no idea.
It's crazy.
I had no comprehension until I saw a dashboard view of the house and the multiple access points. I don't have that big a house. It's your average size house in average size town. $137 devices per house. Who would have thought? And then we get to the Internet of Things. We get appliances connected. We get, we talked about it before. Fridges and toasters and all that stuff getting connected, and doorbells and light
Light bulbs,
controls.
light switches. Each light bulb.
Each light bulb gets an IP. Each light switch gets an IP. Each outlet gets an IP. You quickly get up to 200.
Yeah, that's how you get to 4 billion really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting use case. I'm very curious where this Korean case is going to go because, the usage typically outstrips the service that was designed. I'll give a piece of history for you, Jackson. I'm willing to bet you did not grow up on a dial-up.
Nope.
So back when dial-up was a thing, there was a 7-to-1 ratio of users to modems in the modem pool at an ISP. That was just a magic number they came up with. So for a company that's running, if you had 700 users, you need 100 modems to service your entire customer base. That was just a generic rule. It was pretty solid. Because the worst thing you can do is sell internet service, and then all users get is just a busy signal. You got to wait for somebody to drop off, and you hop on. So if it's 7-to-1, that means if it was more than that, like 10-to-1 or 20-to-1, there'd always be a busy signal. Okay, so Mike, let's roll back the clock. Let's say 1985. What was the average length of a phone call?
Of just a regular phone call, a voice phone
Just a
call.
phone call. Yeah.
Oh,
The phone company doing
couple
capacity
minutes.
planning has a number. You're very close.
Yeah, I
They
think
had a number.
2 or 3 minutes. This
3
got to be
minutes.
where it's at. Yeah.
And so when users started using their modems and they're online for 2 or 3 hours,
Or even half an hour.
now the phone lines are absolutely saturated. So probably a good allegory for where the internet's at. Each house had a phone line going out to the internet. You could have one phone call on that. That phone call would go to the central office for your town or your little region in town. And that central office would have a trunk line going out from it to the internet, or the internet. Yeah, the internet, guys.
Phone network.
It would go out to the phone network. And so you get these massive switchboards in central areas. Those trunks would fill up. So if you had a town of 10,000 people, the average phone call is 3 minutes. You can calculate the number of trunk lines you need to install. Now, copper line isn't free. There's no such thing as fiber optics when they're doing this. They run physical lines going across from central office to main facilities. Is it 20? Is it 100? Is it 400? How many lines do you put in? So you do these rough math calculations, 3 minutes per call, 10,000 people, X number of calls a day, and boom, you get to your magic number of you need 150 lines for the town. If there's 120 people on a modem,
Hmm.
then everybody has 30 lines to share for the rest of the phone calls. So then the telephone
Oh.
company has to freak out and build capacity to service customers. Now, the utility commission was controlling how much people could charge for phones, so they couldn't do that. They can't hack into your phone and hang up your modem for you. So they were stuck with that, and they had that problem. It took them years to solve it. So I think we're hitting that problem now with bandwidth on the internet. Is how do you control the bandwidth on the internet so it doesn't overwhelm the infrastructure that you've built? There's some network. We'll go back in time 15, 20 years. There was ASPs. So your ISP would connect up, and it would connect up, and there would be this apex. There's 5. The acronym I was taught was ASP. It's the top level provider that everybody connects up to, and they would all ring together, and that was your core of the internet. We've changed that infrastructure since then, but the story in my Cisco class was the ASP was at its capacity. And so the idea was to buy the building across the street. It's a 5-story building. Buy that building and build it out with all the infrastructure because they were at capacity. When they got done with it, they had literally doubled the speed and capability of transferring data around. But by the time they were done doubling it, they were still behind the curve. They didn't have enough bandwidth to service
Still
everything that's coming
saturated.
through. So yeah, I think more data is going to be the norm. It's going to move faster and faster, and we're going to need more and more of it. Those cat memes must flow. I could talk about this for hours, but what else do we have on our docket here? We've got the here's one. Hidden dangers of public Wi-Fi. So
Well, yeah, that's a given. I mean, it's public, right? Everybody
You know,
knows that
it's
there's dangers of public Wi-Fi, right? Or doesn't everybody know that?
Oh, this is a new one,
you would
Mike.
hope.
Let me
what's
Yeah.
let me explain what happened with this one. So
Now what? What have they come up with now?
so a guy in Australia was arrested for allegedly uh, um he went on a local flight and his bag was checked underneath the thing. Inside his bag, he left the computer on running as a hotspot for
Oh.
Allegedly.
Wi-Fi. Yeah, everything is alleged, yes. But so because it was there, people that were logging onto the plane's Wi-Fi were getting his option instead, and his option was logging everything, any passwords that passed through it, anything like that, and yeah, they found some suspicious activity on the flight and did some digging and found this guy found stuff at his house that was information he wasn't supposed to have, so he was arrested. And it even on a plane, you're not safe using the public Wi-Fi.
Well, and
Oh,
it's sad, but that technology, that attack vector has been around for over a decade. You know, having if you guys do a search for the Wi-Fi pineapple, it does this. It will mimic and spoof, and it's an easily to obtain a device. It will mimic any Wi-Fi that your phone or laptop is trying to connect to. So the technology here, guys, is when your phone is trying to connect out to Wi-Fi, you walk home, you get on the Wi-Fi automatically, right? You don't push any buttons. You didn't ask it to join the house Wi-Fi. You walked in and you're on Wi-Fi. It's because your phone is constantly saying, "Hey, are you there?" This device, these hacker devices, will say, "Yeah, that's me. Here I am. I'm your house," and your phone has no idea that it's not. So then it starts connecting to services, connects to the internet, logs you into Facebook, logs you into Twitter, whatever services you got automatically going, it'll send it. So then that person operating the pineapple can record all those transactions. If there's any weak ciphers, any weak encryption, or worse yet, if there's no encryption on a connection, your password comes through in clear text and they've got it. So public Wi-Fi is probably the coolest thing ever because you got internet everywhere, but you can't trust it. Never use public Wi-Fi without some sort of extra encryption on top, like a VPN. Now, I hate saying VPN because that is a very misused term, and fortunately, people are getting skeptic of VPNs nowadays. But surfing Wi-Fi, just because you can connect to an open Wi-Fi doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, it's I've seen it be used before actually at a school. On a campus. You can spoof the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi, and within 10-15 minutes, the guy I was observing, he caught I think up to 10-15 users, and he already had their username and password. And it is the easiest thing to do because all they have to do is once they get you on their network, then they can start designing some spoofed login pages. You log in
Mm-hmm.
the network and it says, "Hey, log into Google real quick," and the person goes, "Okay, log into Google," and um, totally fake web page. All it does is store your inputs as text, and now that user of the pineapple has all of your data. So it is something to always be wary of. And I guess I would pose the question is, can you ever trust a public Wi-Fi access point? And if you can, what are your tells? How do you know that, okay, that's safe, I don't mind getting on this?
The only public Wi-Fi I would ever get on is the one that I set up. But there's no guarantee that the public Wi-Fi isn't capturing data. You're trusting your connection to the owner of that public Wi-Fi. And if they're altruistic and they're doing it for the enrichment of everybody around them, great. Let's do that. Starbucks has public Wi-Fi, free public Wi-Fi. That's good. That's a service they're providing their customers. But it's up to Starbucks to make sure that that connection isn't being monitored and filtered or observed by somebody who has bad ideas.
One thing that
I don't know, Mike.
always, one thing that I've thought about with this is, um, I go through a lot of stories that talk about, you've got to update this problem with this model of router, this model of modem. And how often do you think the people that have these public Wi-Fi networks set up, how often do you think they actually update the firmware on these things to protect against, these botnet type of attacks that can take over the device?
Never. I would,
Excitement,
I would,
forget it.
if I was a betting man, I would bet so much money that you could go almost anywhere that's a public access point and it's not up to date.
Well, and it also um talking about the kind of equipment that you have, this is why automatic updating might be a good thing. If you don't have the time to run those updates, then at least make sure that the automatic updating is turned on so that the device can update itself when it needs to. Another thing is a lot of these higher end networking devices have now technologies where they can detect and sniff out if there's something like a rogue AP or someone trying to mimic um, using a same SSID, but it's not a recognized device, to point that out and say, hey, there is somebody running an access point with the same SSID, which is the name of the Wi-Fi, somewhere in your vicinity. Now if that's something you know about, then great. But if it's something you don't know about, well, then that's probably somebody trying to pull this trick, trying to trick other people to sign on to their Wi-Fi.
And you can't really make your device pay attention to that because when you're walking around a school,
Mhm.
you get 1,000 access points all offering the same ID for the Wi-Fi. So by nature and by design of the technology, it will roam and connect to other access points. So a bad actor putting theirs in, they could mimic it very quick and very easy.
Yep.
Your
Mhm.
device has no chance.
Or even if ignoring that, just public Wi-Fi in general, especially with the latest vulnerability that was released for Windows with the Wi-Fi adapters, the network could theoretically be secure, but if your device isn't secure, well, then you've got another problem. If you haven't updated to the latest uh, Windows update that fixed this vulnerability, you could walk into a public Wi-Fi space and somebody who's knowledgeable of the vulnerability could easily get into your system and you're done for. So I mean it is always going to be a risk in my mind to connect to public Wi-Fi, and I avoid it whenever possible, if not always.
And that brings up another one on that Windows vulnerability that was out. I think it was last week, and it was patched very quickly. And as I did my own little bit of research on that, one of the things you have to realize is that make sure that when you're reading about these uh these updates, like it says update now, like one of the articles I said, well, if you're running Windows 11 or if you're running Windows 11 or 10, you need to apply this update. Well, those specific updates that have, and Microsoft gives them a specific serial number, if you will, that it's meant for a specific set of systems. And if I remember right, that this flaw affected Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server, 2016, 2019, 2022. It was a whole list of different Windows systems. And as I got into looking at it, there is a specific patch and update that you need to apply depending on which of those systems you're on. So kudos to everybody that reported on it and tried to get the information out to say, yeah, you need to make sure you download, KB blah 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 for this. Make sure you get the whole story though. Make sure you understand and know what system it is you're running. My laptop runs Windows 10 currently, and so the specific update that I need is not the same number as the Windows 11 update for the same flaw. So that's where it's just blanket statement is make sure you're patched and up to date on everything for your system and that you haven't
Mhm.
missed any updates. But if you're not sure, you can always go into the settings of your Windows machine, go to the update section, and you can look at a history of all your updates and go look through that entire list. It'll tell you each one of those updates that have been applied in the last however long you've been running your machine. And if you cross-reference that with whatever information you're getting, you can find out, well, was this update applied? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. And that's a good way to go too. I know it's a lot more work, but if there's ever a doubt in your mind, that's a way to do it, is to cross-reference and check on that history.
And for the average user who's gotten burned by bad updates before,
Mhm.
there's a propensity to say, "Gosh, I would rather not risk my computer getting a bad update and breaking. I'm just going to leave it unpatched."
And that's why we still have
S-
MS-DOS and XP systems still running out in the wild.
One of them, one of the big reasons. But
Yeah.
the worst thing that somebody can do is say, "I don't trust the manufacturer to keep it up to date, but I don't have time to do the research myself." Because then the idea that I'm going to leave old software with known vulnerabilities on the machine, and when I get to it, I get to it. Hackers are going to get to it before you get to it, especially if it's on the internet.
Well, and for those people, I really got to ask the question then, well, then at what point do you feel comfortable to finally update? At what point does your level of trust get to the point where it says, okay, now I'll do that update or now I'll upgrade to this? Because I've kind of been in that boat myself a little bit, like where I don't know, I've heard that there's, that update breaks a lot of things, and I'll just wait till the next one. And then the next one comes, then you hear that that update breaks something. So at what point, if you're in that cycle, I don't know if there's a way out of it. I don't think that for those kinds of people who think that way, is there ever a way out of it? Other than they just throw the whole system out the window, they run down to the store and they buy a completely brand new system. I mean, I don't know.
So here's this is going to date me a little bit. Um, Back when I first started into computers and networking and all that, these scan and hack just really wasn't a thing. The company I worked with right out of high school, we had public IPs on all our machines, no firewall.
Hmm.
Yikes.
Yeah, and we would run for months, no problem.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you remember the Code Red and NIMDA hacks, Mike,
Code Red.
that's what first changed everybody's minds that we should
Hmm.
not have public IPs on all our computers.
Hmm.
They let me actually do some modifications, but I ran updates on all the systems I had charge of, and so when those viruses came through, um, the systems were fine. The worms couldn't break into the systems I was in charge of. It broke into other systems, and then by extension, those worms tried to infect the systems I was managing. So files were corrupted, but the operating system was rock solid because it was updated. And at that point, I realized if you keep the Windows updates uh, if you keep the updates in place, if you run them, you're going to be ahead of problems more often than not.
Hmm.
I've had machines blue screen on me when I run Windows updates. Those days are, are really not my favorite. But I'd much rather put up with that than a network down or a server down.
One of our customers was telling me that there's an update that came out that ends up, we'll have to research this. This is all I just heard, but it ends up bricking the webcam functionality on the devices completely. Like, sorry, no more webcam for you. Like, great, awesome. But at least the computer's secure.
Yeah, and those are the ones that set things back. I mean, it's speed. It just causes problems. I don't think we're going to find a solution to this anytime soon. Of like, wait for the update to work or apply the updates before you know it works. But I remember just being nostalgic for a second. I remember going to college and I probably shouldn't admit this, but I set up a share. I right clicked and shared a folder on the desktop,
Mm.
and I went home and navigated to that folder and used it as my server for some of the classwork.
Over the public internet.
Over the it is
Nice.
Windows, just / IP address, folder name.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
Public
really
IP
not.
address,
Yeah.
shared folder. That's great.
Yeah, got away with it for a little bit, but then the internet got dark. I
Cool.
miss those days. Those were good days.
Well, we've been talking a little bit about the security stuff, and there's one subject that can be done quickly right now that we've mentioned a few times in past uh, podcasts that we haven't talked about, and that's the NSA's recommendations to regular users for keeping their stuff secure. And it's a short,
Yep.
sweet list that's 5 things. Update your software regularly, ensuring the device's operating system and all installed applications are up to date with the latest security patches and updates. Second thing would be strong authentication, multi-factor authentication to all your things to add an extra layer of security. Be cautious with public Wi-Fi. We were just talking about that. Avoid using public Wi-Fi networks for sensitive transactions. If necessary, use a virtual private network, VPN, to secure the connection. Install apps from trusted sources. This is a big one that a lot of people fail to enact. They'll go to Google, they'll type in what they're looking for, and the first things that pop up will be ads that may not be what you're looking for. They'll say they're what you're looking for, but they're sneaky. Only download and install applications from the official app store if you're using a mobile device, or the website that for the application that you're trying to install. And regularly review all app permissions on your devices, because some things will have access that shouldn't have access. Like you don't want a game to have access to your contacts, to your webcam, to your outgoing calls. Yeah. So those are the 5 recommendations that the NSA gave out a few weeks back.
And just to put context to it, those recommendations, they're not bulletproof, right? There's no bulletproof technology out there to keep you safe, but this will get you most of the way there. Like you're never going to have what they call an attack surface of 0. There's always going to be a vector unless you're unplugged and turned off. I guess even then, there's ways of hacking into something that's there if you get physical access. But doing this will keep most of your hassles to a minimum. There's still going to be hardware failures. There's still going to be software glitches. There's still going to be incompatibilities between old and new software. But I think you'd rather know the problems. You'd rather the manufacturer cause the problems than a threat actor. But you bring up an interesting idea there, Artie. We've talked VPNs. I wonder if we could get a deep dive into VPNs in our next session, our next podcast. If anybody's watching this, leave a comment in the notes below, and we'll see if VPN is something you find interesting. We can take a deep dive and talk the various technologies that are out there. Try and demystify some of the misnomers that are there. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. And I think we're getting close to the end of the hour, so I'm gonna take this moment to say thank you for watching this. We've got a fantastic team here. We're happy to have Mike, Artie, and Jackson with us. We're gonna keep doing this podcast as long as we can and get bigger and better each week. And thank you for your patronage, your sponsorship, and your viewership. Any parting thoughts, anybody?
Stay safe out there.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Happy Friday, everybody. Stay safe with the residual fireworks and enjoy the weekend. Have a good night.
See ya.